right, welcome back. We're on part 2 of our review. We already did the first guided practice, and hopefully you have completed your answers. We did the second guided practice. There were 2 parts to that, and then gave you a moment to answer these independent practice problems. So now let's go on to the third guided practice. Okay. In the diagram below, triangle CAR is congruent to triangle GER. AC equals 3 and GR equals 4. What is the length of ER and AE? Okay, so let's go ahead and mark the information that they've given us. I know that the distance from A to C is 3. So A to C is 3. I know the distance from G to R is 4. G to R is 4. Okay, I'm looking for what is the length of ER, this segment here, and AE, this whole segment here. Okay, so we want to use our congruent statement, and I can see this is asking me about side length, so I'm not so concerned with the individual angles. I know that CA is going to match with GE. So CA is 3, meaning GE is also 3. AR is going to match with ER. So AR is going to match with ER, and I don't know what either one of those are, but I need to know what ER is. Once I know what that is, AR is the same, and then I can use segment addition to find that whole length. Okay? CR matches with GR. So CR matches with GR. So if GR is 4, CR is also 4. Okay? Now, if I cover up one of those triangles and I just look at one, I can see I know one side, I know another side, and I'm missing the third side. And it's a right triangle, which means I can use my Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And c is always your hypotenuse across from the right angle. So c happens to be the side we're looking for, which means my 3 and my 4 can go in for A and B. Okay, so when I solve this, I'm going to get 3 times 3, or 3 squared, and 4 times 4, or 4 squared, equals C squared. So 9 plus 16 is 25, and that equals C squared. To get rid of the square root, the opposite of square rooting. Sometimes I ask, how do you unsquare something? And a lot of us say divide by 2, but that's not it. To unsquare, we square root. So I need to square root both sides. In Algebra 2 and in algebraic reasoning, we were taught that when you take the square root, you give the positive and the negative result. But in geometry, since it's a side length, and lengths can only be positive, we're only worried with the positive result. So C equals, C equals 5. Okay? And so if AR is 5, that means ER is also 5. So what is the length of ER? ER equals 5 units. And what is the length of AE? AE is all the way across 5 and another 5, so the length of AE is 10 units. Okay? So now, if you have the capability to print out, you can pause the video and do number 5 and number 6. I'm making these videos at home. Those were my cats running up the stairs if you heard some commotion. You're going to do number 5 and number 6 on your own. If you have it printed out, you can do it on the sheet. If not, hopefully you're working on scratch paper. All right, hopefully you finished those problems and now you have resumed the video and we're ready to look at the next guided practice. Okay? All right, the next one, which classification best describes the type of triangles below? Okay? So my first triangle, I can see I have one angle that's 65 degrees. And I have another angle that's 28 degrees. So in order to classify this by its angles, I'm going to have to know what that third angle is because I have 2 acute angles, but in order to call it an acute triangle, all 3 angles have to be acute. And it looks acute acute, but it doesn't tell me here this triangle's to scale. So it could be obtuse, it could be right. Okay, if I get a right angle here, then I have a right triangle. If I get an obtuse angle here, then I have an obtuse triangle. So what we need to do to find out if we have an acute triangle or an obtuse triangle is we need to, sorry, my cat's scratching on the furniture, is we need to add these together and take it away from the total 180 degrees in the triangle. So I'm going to do 65 plus 28 which is 93 degrees. That's not this angle, that's these two angles together. What's left for this one, I'm going to take 180 and subtract that 93, which is going to leave me with 87 degrees. Okay, so since that angle is 87 degrees, all three of my angles are acute, so this is an acute triangle. Since all these angles are different, I know if two of them were the same, then I have an isosceles triangle because those would be base angles. I know if all three of them are the same, that's the only way I get an equilateral triangle. So since all three of my angles are different, I know this has to be acute, and when I classify it by its sides, it's going to be acute and scaling. Okay, the next triangle, I've got an 8x. It's kind of really tiny. Let's see if we can zoom in on this. All right, I have an 8x, and then I have a 32x and a 32x. Okay, so since I have these two are both 32x, no matter what x is, if I put a 1 in here, they'd both be 32. If I put a 2 in here, those would both be 64. Whatever I put in for x, these are always going to come out the same. So I know I have at least two sides. This side has to be different because if I put a 2 in here, those would both be 64. When you multiply it by 8, you're always going to get something different. Okay, so this is definitely an isosceles triangle. And because I don't have any information about any of the angles, I can tell it looks like they're all acute. But remember, nothing here tells me these triangles are to scale. So that means on this one, there's not enough information to classify it by its angles. I can only classify it as isosceles. It does have a classification by angles. I just don't have enough information to complete that. Okay? All right, so now you'll take a moment. You can pause the video and look at the independent practice for 7, 8, and 9. We're going to be classifying just by angles. If you'd like, you can also classify them by their sides because you do have enough information when you have the angles, but you only have to classify these by the angles. For 10, 11, and 12, you're going to be classifying by sides. And if you have enough information, you can also, if you'd like, classify it by the angles, but you don't have to. And on all of them, you won't have enough information. On some of them, you will. On all of them, you will not. Okay? All right. And I think we're actually going to go ahead and pause this video, stop this video here, and we'll pick up with the next guided review on the next video. Okay? Thank you so much for watching.